So now I will give the floor to Jukka Liedes, who will summarize his perspective, and then we will finally give the floor to Tuomas Aslak Juuso for his final words. Okay, Jukka, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Anna. And it is the right order. Tuomas Aslak shall have and should have the last word in this discussion, in these discussions of today. So we have had a rich discussion, both the description of the background and also the definition of the whole scene, setting the scene of the whole project we are dealing with. In the afternoon, we went to more concrete questions, and I should perhaps not repeat too much. I have made my notes. What I will say will necessarily be a bit unorganized and fragmentary, and of course only selected points from the many relevant points we had. I will take the order of the business as the discussions went on, and in the end offer a couple of perhaps ideas of my own. In the afternoon, Rainer referred to the protection of cultural values, which the provisions we have in the Nordic legislation. There is a possibility to reformulate those provisions or then extend the applicability in some adapted form, or as such probably adapted form, and that would represent the approach of a possible sui generis rule, but it is definitely public law. It is not. It is subject to the decisions of an authority, and then requires a quite well elaborated administrative process, which resembles a bit a court case when the ministries in the Nordic countries should study the evidence available and hear the experts in the area. Juustein, he his intervention emphasized the importance of the existing regimes of designs, trademarks, which are some of the most important existing sets of rules, perhaps more easily available than copyright or any protection similar to copyright. And they are at least partly functioning, as we heard from Tuomas's speech in the morning. There are still many questions concerning, for instance, the applicability and the application of the trademark protection. So there is need to refine the application in the forthcoming steps of studies and considerations. And then Jostein also reminded us about the proposal by the Norwegian government to the WIPO committee, IGC, from the year 2006. And there Anna is the representative of Finland in the negotiations. I have had the honor to be the vice chair of that committee and still vice chair elect of that committee. So that will not be forgotten in any case. And this proposal was based on the concepts of misappropriation and unfair use of TK. And then he also stressed about the awareness of Sámi culture, respect and recognition, And these are exactly the motives of the whole project and also the work in WIPO. Martin, he welcomed the initiative, Nordic, so he agreed with our approach. Now there is a try launched.
Are you talking about Martin Berger or Martin Fredriksson?
Martin I have not a list. Martin FR. So he agrees with the approach. We are launching a Nordic project, a serious try to take some concrete steps forward, and that is also in coherence with the policy that Anna has been maintaining in WIPO. Finland is one of the few countries, for instance, in Europe, who clearly is able to say that we, in the European family, for instance, we should try to achieve concrete positive results in this work at some instance. And now the concrete results are long overdue. So there should be an extreme try to come forward. He reminded us about the respect of moral rights, which are often forgotten. That is well taken, that point. In addition to the revenue aspects, so it deals with the integrity. And then he reminded that we should learn from other regulations and especially take into account inter alia the customary laws. And that is also something that at least some of the European delegations will never forget. And we know that we have allies in other regional groups of countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America at least. And legislative cooperation is a self-evident prerequisite for any progress. Studies and mapping the existing systems, which, as I said in my introduction speech, which is the first step. The next steps follow. Petra Magga dealt with a very important field of Sámi culture, which is in the very focus of the whole project: handicraft, language, terminology. She referred to the situations of production and distribution of products that are similar or non-genuine products, and the effects of the existence of those in the markets on the whole vulnerable culture, Sámi culture, which is indigenous. So this is something that we also have, where we also have a bridge to Washington. There have been contacts during the last a couple of years with the Americans that there should be and could be, as a part of the possible international instrument, some obligations concerning the prevention of existence and distribution and production of counterfeit false indigenous products to the market. Tuomas, Aslak, thanks for your remarks, which came in the middle of the panel. As I said in my introductory speech, what we are doing now is the first step, which is the looking at the possible gaps, looking at what the existing legislations can achieve. And then the next, after having identified the gaps, then the step is to consider where there are needs, where the gaps are too serious, so that new legal rules should be established. And you referred already to a specific legislation. Also, Anna knows that I tend to agree. I guess that the bulk of the non-copyrightable Sámi history and stock of expressions of Sámi culture may only be, the need of protection may only be served through a specific legislation. And then the question will be, how should that legislation be, and should that legislation have also cross-border, trans-border effect or international coverage? Tuomas Aslak referred also to a special arrangement between the Nordic countries. Yes, indeed, we need governments, but as you said, there is absolutely high priority that whatever is considered shall be something that is acceptable for the Sámi communities. And then you reminded about sacred and secret side of the Sámi culture. That is something that is very much under discussion in WIPO. Tuomas, he in his main presentation in the morning referred to the specific clauses of cultural values in the Nordic laws, and also elaborated thoughts on the role of existing trademarks as well as the problems in that area. So now in the afternoon he emphasized how broad and extensive our area is, and he demonstrated he's a doctorand and soon issuing his hopefully his doctoral thesis. He has almost demonstrated his open and holistic view on the matter, and that is, I think, beautiful. It's fine because we have to understand the whole phenomenon, not only the narrow intellectual property part of it. Now Martin Berger, he reminded us about the need to raise awareness in IP. He stressed the role of the IP offices, and especially in Sweden, for instance, the promotion of the position of SMEs and Sámi, small and micro Sámi enterprises, of course, not naturally maybe SMEs. And then case law has to be taken also into account. Case law may also be one of the background factors that gives us basis for legal policy considerations. If the court cases are wrong, then the thing shall be corrected with political decisions. The political decisions are normally legislative changes. And then there was the reference by Martin Berger to the circumstances that current systems may be working or not. I would comment that the existing systems, where they are applicable, they are applicable. Where they are not applicable, there are gaps. And then you should consider how serious the gaps are, and then the legal policy issue considerations. How serious it is there an idea how to mend the situation? Silja Zombie, how to come to good decisions in the Nordic circumstances? Luohti, education, customary law, etc. What is the traditional knowledge? And then a very important short slogan: nothing about us without us. I think that should be heading the whole project. Nothing about us without us. The Sámi voice should be the leading voice. Johan Axhan, continued what was commented by Tuomas. Eligibility, important aspects concerning the criteria of application and criteria of points of attachment. similar questions on the applicability and application of, for instance, rights on trademarks. Of course, we are not yet there. As also Tuomas Aslak replied to his question, his questions are necessarily for the moment unresolved concerning TK and TCE. They have to be resolved only when the system is being built up, and then normally it should be tested whether there are good resolutions and solutions for those issues. So we have had a rich discussion. This was a kind of a short account of what we heard and some comments. And I have a couple of final ideas. The key to the progress here is, and that should start immediately after this meeting, to take into account the aspirations of the Sámi communities. We need contact making between the government people and the Sámi communities, of course, Sámi parliaments in the Nordic countries, intensive contact in order to come to concrete results and establish common ground on what could be done and what should be done. And in this work, one of the first tasks is to define the goals for the next steps and restrict the range of questions which are under discussion in order to be able to come to concrete results. So you need prioritizing, and then of course, if you tackle the first things first, then you have the understanding that the next things and next items will be tackled as a next step, and so forth. We have a lot to do, and for a long time. So this 1 year will be perhaps the defining period, and hopefully also the developing period of some concrete results also. And we have always, this is to Silja, we have always both the rights-based approach and the measures-based approach available. And that is important. It belongs to the vocabulary of the European Union. Two further small remarks on something that was not discussed. I think that the European Union should not interfere too much in this business. There are no indigenous peoples in the other Nordic, in the other European countries than Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Finland. So the voice of these countries should be in the intergovernmental work be decisive, and the rest of the Europe should understand that. They have not yet understood it. And then the last thing is a bit reference also to, I think, Silja. There could also be the idea to harmonize terminology on the things we are talking about during this 1 year, to draft and craft a first version of a handbook of definitions or proto definitions for in order to understand better what we are talking about. And then my last remark is thanks to all participants, thanks to all partners in cooperations, especially to the Sámi parliaments of the Nordic countries. Thank you, Anna, and thank you the rest of you.
Thank you, Jukka, for your summary. I think we got many of these points. I will give soon the floor for final words to Tuomas, Aslak, Juuso, but first I omitted to give the floor to Jukka-Pekka Timonen. So if you allow me, I will just very shortly let him speak in between, but no other comments, unfortunately, at this stage anymore. We are over our time already. So please, Jukka-Pekka, if you're there, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Anna. I really don't know whether this is a proper place for a voice from audience, but thank you nevertheless. And I have really been enjoying the panel and the discussions here. No. You have covered such a wide array of different topics in this interesting field. I just would like to point out one thing regarding the possible possible role of collective management in this field. It's namely so, at least that at least in my opinion, in the Nordic countries, we have a great tradition of collective management of copyrights, and I dare to say that at least at some instances, the collective management organizations in the Nordic countries have been even creative and flexible. And I think that this framework could give some space and some kind of new energy for the Sámi people as well. And we have some kind of activity. For example, in Norway, we have Sámikopia, that is a copyright organization, small copyright organization led by Sámi people, and that organization gets its share from the copying remuneration coming from Copinor, that is a sister organization of Copiosta. And partly similarly, we have, for example, in Finland, an organization for the writers who have Swedish as mother tongue, and they publish in Finland's literary works in Swedish. So I think that the idea of Sámikopia, it would be perhaps one idea to copy that in these different Nordic countries, while the Sámi people living in Sweden and Finland. If you would, and if you could collect the copyrights there and begin dialogue with the copyright organization existing in the Nordic countries, so that could create something. So we have an interesting, well-functioning framework for collective administration. We have very good, flexible legislation there, and as Berger mentioned, we can even tackle the problems regarding gränsöverskridande, alltså over borders, the use of works going over the borders of the countries. So this was my message, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jukka-Pekka Timonen. I just want to present to you also to the audience. So you are working for the joint copyright organization Copiosto in Finland, and raising the possible cooperation between and among the CMOs, the collective management organizations, is a positive news. I would say, because we need more engagement in all levels of the IP in institutions in order to encompass all of these needs that have been presented today. Now, just to remark that to Jukka's point that the Sámi are the only one in Sweden and Norway and Finland, the indigenous people, but of course we have the Inuit in Greenland. So, and that's also something that we will definitely consider to take into program Council of Ministers. But now word to Tuomas, Aslak, Juuso. Tuomas, Aslak, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you to everybody that have been participating to the day. I think that today, as a summary from my perspective, I will give a little bit different kind of a view that that Jukka gave. I think Jukka precisely really well pointed out points that were raised today. But I think my role then is more looking to the future. I think that we have been starting the dialogue between two systems, two peoples, two groups of peoples that have a totally different background or starting point to this issue. I think that the Western legal system and the indigenous customary law here is the attempt to build a dialogue between them. I think that there has been clear statement as a starting position that this is under the right of self-determination of the Samis. I think it's pretty clear that there is no need and no point starting to debate whether Sami people own the traditional knowledge, cultural heritage, cultural expressions, etc. I think in the Nordic countries there is an understanding and acceptance to that. The question comes on then whether how we can be building the bridges between our societies in order to have protection for the indigenous customary law aspect and try to combine and make it in a dialogue with the Western system. Trying to do that is not, of course, easy. I do see, and from this day, that the and rightly so, people from the Western society aspect have been studying, have been building their careers on certain rules, certain narratives that are coming from the legislations that are currently in place. So I do see that there is a challenge to understand the customary law aspect of the indigenous people Samis. And I hope that everybody of us can be mindful of this issue and challenge ourselves as individuals, that do we only see things from the one perspective, or can we see the other perspective, and is there a possibility to build a dialogue between the two systems? I think and I hope there is a possibility to build a dialogue within the two different approaches that are coming from totally different backgrounds. There are many different details, aspects, issues that what we have been today talking. We have been talking about the lohti, we have been talking about gakti, we have been talking about different cultural expressions, traditional knowledge, sacred sites, you name it. So the scale of issues is really wide. This is not going to be an easy exercise. As we have seen in a WIPO context, the solution for these issues is not to be seen, to be honest. I think that the Nordic countries could be an example for the whole world, where the Sami parliaments, together with the Sami civil society and the governments, can find indigenous peoples themselves to under right of self-determination develop, maintain, and run their aspirations towards their aspirations. I think that is possible, but it will take time. The context in that sense can be, as I was saying, example to the whole world, can be a solution also in the WIPO. So I think that, and I hope that governments, Finland, Norway, and Sweden also would take this as an opportunity to provide Nordic solutions in the whole world. We cannot forget, although Sámi is living in 4 countries, an issue with the Russian side is something that we really much have to keep in mind and make solutions for that. It is not an easy task, but I think that at least in the Sámi inner work and their role has to be secured. That usually means resources. I'm coming now to the final conclusion of today, that where there is willingness, there is opportunity. The Sámi parliaments have clearly stated today that they have already started to work with the Pan-Sámi traditional knowledge, culture, heritage policy. There is an aspect of self-governance and self-government on that topic. There clearly is willingness and to understand in the Scandinavian area the Sámi aspects and needs, and I think that has been today especially been heard by academia coming from the Nordic states. I'm also grateful for the government of Finland that has been active here, organizing this and pushing the issue as a priority. And I hope that the governments of Norway and Sweden will also engage in a much more wider aspect to our common discussions. We cannot, though, forget that these discussions has to be continued. We are not in a place where we can and have a clear road how and why we can move forward. So in order to build these discussions further, we cannot just forget the issue for a couple of years and reconvene again. Active dialogue is important, and I thank the government of Finland and the other co-hosts, including our own parliament, of course, on having this day today. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much, Tuomas, Aslak, Juuso, for your concluding words. We have now reached the moment when we should be exhausted, but I don't feel that exhausted. I feel quite energized by these discussions and the hope for future and the possibilities that we have from enhanced Nordic cooperation, these points that were made, and the support that we got as well from the panel towards different sorts of practical measures that we can do, among them awareness raising and also more engagement between experts between this and the year next year when we are planning together this seminar or event under the notion of nothing about us without us, which sounds very good. All right. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to the organizers. Together we have made this work. And I want to thank the interpreters as well. Thank you, Miljana and Jon and Tina and Anne for being here and listening to the discussions. We will organize some sort of text, English text to this video that will be made available later. So these discussions will be also made available to you in English, so don't worry. It's important that these messages are getting through. Also, we will put all the presentations to the portal and the extra materials as well that were provided to us by the speakers. So please go and look into the portal more than once. There's information to be shared. Okay. I think we are ready to close the day.
Thanks a lot, Anna and Jukka and Rita and Paula and everyone on the organizing team. Thank you, translators. Really interesting day. Thank you a lot.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.